morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Be sure to tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking. Get your questions in as well. We'll get to all those here in a little bit. We've got quite a bit to talk about this morning, guys, and let's start with the obviously the hot topic, spring ball. You guys have put some very, very good notes over on ontexasfootball.com, but let's go a little more in depth on that, especially defensive backs.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some good news yesterday. Jerry and I were talking about this, and I posted a note on Texas Football yesterday afternoon. Look, every so often we hear about freshmen starting to stand out really early, and I didn't get to see everybody on that first day. Nobody did, and then we didn't have media availability yesterday because of the weather there in Austin. I'm just here to tell you that the chatter behind the scenes is that Texas may have something. May have caught lightning in a bottle with Cade Phillips, the young man out of the Fort Bend area down in Houston, Missouri City. He apparently is having a really good first start to his workouts as a Texas Longhorn on the field. So I think that that is one thing I've heard. Ryan Wingo continues to be a standout. Also, some other news and notes that we're hearing at this point. Christian Clark continues to work his way back. As well as Nick Brooks playing second team left tackle. Jaden Chapman also working there a little bit, I was told as well. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now on the 40 acres. They'll practice again tomorrow morning, I believe it is. I got to check my schedule, but they're through two practices. The feedback I got from Arch, and I wrote this on the site as well, is there are times when he looks like a first-year starter, and there are times when he looks like a 5-year NFL vet. So he's one of those guys. He's coming along the way you think he probably would because of the talent mixed with the youth and inexperience at this point. But I think that overall a good first couple of days for the Longhorns from a practice perspective as they set the stage for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I would say this. By the way, Alabama just hit another 3 on BYU. If you turned the game off last night late, but that was 26. But I'll say this: I think, look, the number one recruiting class is getting a lot of rave reviews, and we've been doing this a long time. You guys have been following this a long time. That's not always the case, I mean, or especially early on. But I continue to hear really good things about the class. I think, look, barring, injury, which is, you can't predict, or somebody doing something dumb on a Friday or Saturday night that impacts their career, I think Texas defensive back class is going to end up being talked about as part of this number one class for a while. I think there are a number of guys who have impressed, and I think they've all impressed in their own ways since showing up in Austin. Obviously, Jonah Williams not part of spring football practice. The other guys are. And that is the Zealous Hicks, who's turned some heads at safety. Grayson Littleton, who's been turning heads in workouts or early on practice, whether that's at corner or nickel. Cade Phillips, Caleb Chester's got a lot of upside, and obviously Jonah's in baseball. But this is a really, really strong defensive back class from what we've heard. Now they got to go do it, but I think we're going to be talking about this defensive back class for a few years.
I went on record early and said, hey, I would not be surprised, Jerry, if this defensive back class, which did get it was rated one of the best in the country coming in, no doubt about that. But the wide receiver group really got the lion's share of attention in recruiting, right? They were the ones that, they got 3 5-stars, all this stuff. I'm just here to tell you, 3 to 4 years, we're going to look back at this, and I would not be surprised that the defensive back class from the 2025 recruiting class does not kind of overwhelm or outperform the wide receiver class of this Texas group. I got that sense, and I'm out there saying it. I felt like they've got some guys that might be higher end than what people realize on defense right now.
Well, we talked about the defensive backs, but let's talk quarterbacks for a second here, guys. ESPN ranked the top 15 quarterbacks in college football. I'm going to put up the list like this because it is a ESPN Plus article. But as you can see there, Arch Manning, number 12 on this list. We're going to talk more about that here in a minute. But two quarterbacks Texas will face, DJ Lagway from Florida at number 10, and then John Mateer from OU at number 4. And then, as you can see, Kate.
All right, let's tear this apart because it is fun. Sam Levitt's getting no respect. Sam Levitt, if it were me, Sam Levitt would be, I'd probably flip Nussmeier and Alar. I think Alar is a pro prospect, but as a college player, I think Nussmeier's better. I just do. I would have Sam Levitt. I'm not sure I wouldn't have Sam Levitt above both those guys, honestly, right now. John Mateer, boy, the weight of the Sooner shoulders is on that one. I mean, he's being thrown up there high. Hadn't played Power 4 ball yet. Good player, but kind of disrespect to Levitt and Sellers there. I mean, if Mateer is better than Lenoris Sellers, then Brent Venables will save his job. Let's just say that right now, because Lenoris Sellers is a dude in college football. Carson Beck is too high. I would flip Lagway with Nico. Nico is very inaccurate. It's funny. If with the Carson Beck, I'd move down. I'd have Lagway ahead of both of those guys headed into this year. I know Carson Beck's got more skins on the wall. He's also got a lot more interceptions on the wall. So that's where I would go with that list. And I like that Arch Manning's lower. Go out and look, he's got to go out and prove it.
I'm good. Yeah, look. Is it possible people are overrating Cade Klubnik right now? I mean, he had a good game against Texas. Was he the best quarterback? Was he an elite quarterback in your opinion in that game? I thought he was a quarterback.
I think the big thing on this list is I think Klubnik is a winner and a really, really good college quarterback. The big thing for me on this list is, what do these second-year starters look like? Because Cade Klubnik has a big head start on them. If you look at this list, Nussmeier's a first-year starter. Sellers, first-year starter. Levitt.
A year ago. Oh, yeah, a year ago.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Levitt was first-year starter. So what do these guys look like in year 2? Even Nico, Lagway. I mean, there's a lot of these guys. Who is going to take the big jump? I've heard a lot of things about Sam Levitt in the offseason. I know Nussmeier is going to be better year 2. So these guys behind Cade, there were a lot of first-year starters. And some of these guys are going to make big jumps as sophomores. But I think Cade he's an ultimate winner type of kid, right? I mean, he did it in high school. He's doing it at Clemson after some early struggles. But look, some of those early struggles, I mean, look, I think Cade Klubnik, what he's done at Clemson, he's almost pushed Dabo to evolve.
Yeah. You're talking about with the receivers?
Well, no, I just mean like there were some things that went on, what he called his own. He changed a play in the goal line. I mean,
it didn't work.
And it didn't work. But look, I mean, I think he's kind of pushing his coach a little bit too. And I appreciate the guy's a winner. Is he going to end up the season number 1? That all depends on really. I mean, does Lenoris Sellers become an absolute wow guy in year 2? Can South Carolina put the parts around him? What does Nussmeier look like in year 2? Sam Levitt, what does he look like in year 2? I mean, I think that guy's going to be really good in the Big 12. So it's going to be interesting to see. Does it Arch Manning or DJ Lagway? Because Lagway, this will be his first full year as a starter, assuming he's healthy. Does one of those two guys just make a huge jump this season?
I'm going to put this out there. We could debate how this looks. If I were grading this on NFL draft pick status, there are 2 players that are 1-1s, in my opinion, in this group, potentially. That's Arch Manning and DJ Lagway. They're of all these. I mean, and I know that, Sam Levitt or Lenoris Sellers, man, as pro quarterbacks, in my opinion, there are 2 guys that are potential 1-1s. That's Arch Manning and DJ Lag. Now,
So
Cade Klubnik, really good. The best, like personally, and Baker Mayfield's really good, right? That's kind of Cade Klubnik's upside. And Baker Mayfield, in retrospect, is he really a 1-1 guy? He's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And so I'll put it out there that way. And I'm not trying to diminish Cade Klubnik. I think he's, to Jerry's point, great winner, all that other stuff. I just think when I sit back and look at who is a potential 1-1 pick, first pick overall, and is worthy of that, I look at DJ Lagway and Arch Manning different than I look at every single other player in that list, including Lenora Sellers, who I think may have as much talent as any of them. But to Jerry's point, I just don't think South Carolina is going to put the pieces around him to let him kind of develop into that. That's my opinion. But for college, Jerry's right. Nussmeier is better than Alar in college.
I think Sam Levitt will be too in college.
Yeah, I believe that.
Like Sam Levitt, to me, I know there's a lot of Westlake people on here. This is not meant as anything other than just having a discussion. Sam Levitt, to me, is a more talented Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think Sam Levitt is pretty elite, especially in the college game. He has
the arm strength of Klubnik. Klubnik has a little bit better arm than Levitt from what I saw in person from those two. But I think Levitt's a better athlete, to Jerry's point. And Klubnik's a high-level athlete, by the way.
Yeah.
But Levitt is outside of Lenora Sellers, who's the second best athlete on that list? I think you might say Sam Levitt. Right, Jerry?
Yeah. Mateer's a good athlete. Haynes King, good athlete. Yeah, there's some good athletes on this list playing the quarterback position for sure. And to your point, Blake, by the way, so Texas plays 2 of those guys, obviously, Mateer and Lagway. How many does Oklahoma play on this schedule?
Jeez.
A lot.
Yes. The answer is a lot. How many does A&M play on this schedule? The answer is Arch Manning, Lagway, Lenora Sellers, Nussmeier, a lot.
Yeah. So let's look at Arch Manning a little bit deeper. So they said normally first-year starters don't appear on national lists of top quarterbacks, and there's many that have done more than Manning in actual games. But they go on to say that he isn't a typical quarterback to evaluate. But what I found interesting is they had some anonymous coaches weigh in on Manning, and that's what I want to read here. So one coach said, that was way more natural than I thought it was going to be. I was blown away by how effortless it looked. And then the coach added, going into the game, I had respect for his body size, the way he threw it, how he commanded things. But then in the game, obviously he ran well. He's going to be in the Heisman conversation for damn sure. And then another coach adds in, he's an elite athlete. He's still a first-time starter, so people need to give him a little bit of time.
Preach.
Oh, I know the two. I know the 2 coaches.
All I will say is preach.
Because
that's exact. That last line is exactly what we've been talking about. He's still a first-time starter, so people need to give him a little bit of time. The other thing that we've been talking about, Jerry, is look. Why are people so enthralled with him? Because of how effortless the thing looked. I mean, think about what he did against UTSA. 5 touchdowns.
If anybody's ever listened to Jeff Traylor talk, there's a lot of for damn sure's at the end of his answer. So you know who that is because that's when he had to run. And the other coach is obviously in the Briles family.
Yeah.
Those are your 2 coaches. This is not hard. Okay. Some of these are hard if a guy started for 30 games. This isn't hard. UTSA started Mississippi State.
Yeah.
You know who the quotes are from here.
Oh, man. All right, Bobby, before we move on to our next segment, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there how they can escape the insurance trap with BKCW.
Yeah, all season long, you've heard us talk about the Longhorn, you know the drill. Renewal time rolls around. You scramble for quotes and end up Stuck with a higher price? BKCW helps you break that cycle. They'll dive deep into your past claims, assess risk, and deploy tools to make your company safer. Then they'll bring you the most competitive options available. With BKCW, the goal is simple: help make you and your employees safer so you can save money and hopefully experience fewer claims. Learn more about BKCW and what they can provide you and your business. Go to bkcw.com or send them an email, info@bkcw.com to get started. Also, you can use that QR code on the ad that you saw earlier just now. Again, that's 512-250-5055.
Okay, well, one thing I know that y'all wanted to talk about this morning is the house settlement and go a little in depth on that. So, Bobby, I'm going to let you start.
Yeah, so it's coming down the wires. It's expected to be approved, denied, tweaked, set aside, all of those possibilities sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The official date, I believe, is early April, but typically that's when the decision is made, but not when the full release of the paperwork is decided, and there are comments alongside it for people to run by. The reason Jerry and I want to talk about it is this. There's a lot going on out there right now as far as recruiting and people saying this guy's going to sign here or there. At the University of Texas, I'm just here to tell you, there has not been a lot of substantive discussions around NIL yet with key players, okay, or with key recruits. So the idea that somebody's, they're going to be able to do this or get this player or get that player, etc. Okay, or how much they'll even be able to pay, given that the house settlement may require a different outlook of everyone across the board. I mean, LSU right now is out there telling guys that they're going to pay them a lot of money. Okay, they're leading with NIL. I don't have any problem with that. That's the way they want to recruit, personally, in my opinion, and that's fine. The reality of it is they don't know for sure that they're going to be able to do that based on the house settlement. Yeah, the house settlement they may have to go back and redo some of those agreements.
And how's that going to go?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what Jerry and I wanted to talk about. There are a lot of people putting the cart before the horse right now in recruiting. And I actually think this actually plays really well into Steve Sarkisian's general or typical MO and what he's done over time. I mean, usually I think it works against him timing wise because people try to get early commitments and snap them up because they think they can be the first ones to him. Now with the house settlement and the ruling of it uncertain, I think there's more time here for Texas to kind of test the waters with a number of different players across the country. I will just say this, and Jerry and I talked about it. It's not just football either. This is basketball. This is all the sports that had any NIL. If they go to a system where it has to be quote unquote legitimate NIL, and that doesn't get tested, then and overturned, then I think that people are in for a rude awakening of what it's going to look like. Because look, if Texas has a $15 million NIL pool, according to the $20 million house settlement for football, that's going to be less than what they spent last year. And I can tell you right now, Texas really likes its roster as it's currently constructed. Talk about classes they love, freshmen, sophomore. They don't want to lose those guys. So how are you going to do all of it? Well, we'll see what the judge has to say about this. But people are right now, in my opinion, in recruiting, and I'm not talking about just reporters, I'm talking about other schools. They're overreaching right now on what they're going to be able to do prior to the house settlement. Just my opinion. And they may have to restructure some of those things, and we'll see if they still have the trust of the players when they try to do that.
Yeah, so there's I got a few thoughts on this to add to Bobby. Look, when you're out there offering 7-figure deals to juniors in high school right now, that backlash, if you have to go back and have a different discussion with them, is going to be massive. And if you in this house settlement agreement, now my understanding, Bobby, is there's going to be real outside NIL outside of 501c3s, right? Outside of
yeah. Those are going to go the way the 501c3 are all but vanished.
Right.
So, but there are still ones out there that are essentially pay for play.
Yeah.
Even though they say they're not. I mean, I'm not going to. Everybody participating in it knows it, so it's not Texas specific. It's not LSU specific. It's the whole industry right now is that way as a matter of fact, not necessarily law, but fact. And so the problem that you have is that you're going to have both sides of that, but the NCAA and its member schools are vowing to crack down on that second component. Okay. Until or unless that is actually cracked down on, they're going to be right, but they could get caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And that's what Jerry and I are talking about. I mean, there's a receiver out there, for example, that's been offered multiple millions of dollars as a high school player right now.
Junior.
Yeah. And how is that going to really work out when you only have $15 million to work with? It doesn't work out. Now, if you have $30 million to work with, different story, right? But you just can't do that. And so I feel like that's probably, Jerry and Blake, what we're looking at right now is whether or not that part of the agreement, the non-NIL from the school, is really able to stand up in court. If it is, then there are going to be some players that have done deals already and locked them in. They're going to have to be renegotiated.
And when all this stuff started, I had it was interesting. I asked a few college coaches what they kind of thought long-term with this. And a couple of guys had the same answers. Ultimately, down the line, when all this stuff kind of where it's headed, the big cities who have the infrastructure and the opportunities for true NIL outside of what's about to happen with this house settlement agreement are going to have a huge advantage. Now, unless you have AKA Brad Wesley from Roadhouse running around running the entire city of Lubbock, right? And those businesses are all doing things, right, for kids, which, that's there is that possibility. But your big cities that are going to be where colleges are sitting in big cities they have an advantage in this long term at the end of the day, in my opinion, because outside of if this house settlement agreement goes through as being talked about now, outside of that, whatever 15 million you have for football, whatever that 2.8 to 3 for basketball, the real NIL outside of collectives is gonna be huge for these programs. Who can create that? I know I brought up Roadhouse, yes, because I was talking about Texas Tech because they're Brad Wesley up there running the city. But it's gonna be interesting to see who's going to create those opportunities, Bobby. But the major cities, if you're in a major city, you do have an advantage long term in this, the way it looks like it's setting up. I agree with a couple of college coaches. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. I mean, you got to go where the dollars are.
Yep.
Austin now over 2.5 million people in the metro.
The traffic this week says yes, that's correct. It's been steady.
Well, I mean, compare that to Baton Rouge or College Station or Norman, et cetera. I think that will be one of the pieces. But look, we'll see whether or not this house settlement actually reins in these secondary payments, not the ones coming from the schools, but the secondary payments, the wild, wild west, as some people like to call it.
Yeah.
My guess is it does not. And they're going to try it, and somebody's going to sue them. and they're going to have to say okay and go on down the road. And they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle again. And ultimately, I don't think it's going to work. At the same time, it may work for a while, which is going to cause some schools to renege on their contracts or deals. Texas is not situated that way and not willing to go into that direction at this time.
We have
Hey, we got a couple of basketball things we need to hit on real quick.
Go for it.
Nathan says this because this is of note, and I haven't seen this. Obviously, I'm on air. Ryan Conwell of Xavier to the portal. He is the 6'3" lefty guard who's one of the best in the country. That would be a fourth-year returning guard in college basketball. Hit 99 threes at 41%, hit 100 threes plus threes over 40% the year before. Obviously, played for Sean Miller Xavier. Does that guarantee anything? It doesn't guarantee anything. But there you go. He is entering the portal. That doesn't mean he won't test NBA waters and go through that process because you have some guys that are going to do that. But Ryan Conwell is a dude. He is a dude, and I know Texas will have serious interest in Ryan Conwell. Does that mean they'll get him? I can't say that. But him entering the portals is a pretty big deal, I believe.
Will be his fourth school in 4 years.
Yeah, he was one of these kids. Like, if you look around, and we'll get into some of this, if you look around college basketball, I mean, he wasn't a highly recruited kid out of high school. And so he's kind of leveled up. He's worked his way up. Now, he went to South Florida, I think, his freshman year, but he transferred to Indiana State, had a big year there, transfers up to Xavier, had a big year there, and now he's going to transfer up once again and make a mint and probably have another big year. That's kind of the way of college basketball. Mark Sears, Ohio University, wasn't highly recruited out of the state of Alabama, comes back now to Alabama, and look at him now. If you look around college basketball, Walter Clayton Jr. at Florida, I loved him out of high school. I was just happening to watch some stuff. I saw him. He signed with Rick Pitino at Ione, and those big schools didn't want him out of high school. He goes up there and crushes it. Now he levels up to Florida, and he's making a mint, and he's going to go on and have a pro career. That's really the way of this that we're in college basketball. I mean, it is pretty much, I call it AA, all working your way up to the majors. It's minor league baseball, working your way up. In college basketball, you see that more than football by the numbers.
I wanted to say this, watching the games last night, Jerry. Florida Florida moves forward from the SEC. Alabama, obviously, in the SEC, moving forward. That Alabama game, 25 threes hit. We talked about that. Arkansas, though, with the laying the egg of the night. Texas Tech with a crazy comeback. I think, what were they, down 16 at one point with about 5 to 6 minutes left to go in the game, and Texas Tech came back and beat Arkansas. Otherwise, Jerry, there would have been 3 SEC teams already in the Elite Eight. Now there's just 2 of the 4. Arkansas losing to Texas Tech, Florida beating Maryland, Duke beating Arizona, Alabama just throttling BYU on 25 threes. The question I had, it apparently, and this is another basketball talk that's important, good win for Texas Tech, great comeback. The question I had for you on it, though, does this mean Maryland's loss to Florida? Okay. Their coach, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin Willard, is expected to take the Villanova job.
Yeah.
Okay. And Buzz Williams, the Texas A&M coach, is a possible leading candidate to take over at Maryland.
Yeah, he wants out. We've mentioned this. He wants out. I want to talk about the Sweet 16. I want to respond to a question, but yeah, we'll see if he gets Maryland. He wants out. We've been talking about this for months. I mentioned this 2 months ago. So we'll see where that goes. If Buzz were to get out, somebody asked a question that I think is a really good question. We'll see how smart Texas A&M actually is.
Oh, you think they would go after Chris Beard?
If they don't throw everything they have at Chris Beard, they're truly idiots over there. I'll just say that from a basketball standpoint. If Buzz Williams gets another job, because Chris Beard couldn't even get in on Indiana, and that's gotta hurt because that he wanted that job badly. And that he's not really being considered for some of these jobs because obviously what happened at Texas. If I'm A&M, I go all. I'm out of alls in on Chris Beard for basketball. That would change. That if they're smart, they would do that. But I want to answer this question. After seeing last night's games, do you think we'll be competing for a top half of the conference? Well, it depends on what your expectations are. So if you expect Texas to be top 4 in the SEC in year one, you're probably not over the target for me. Todd Golden didn't make the NCAA tournament in year one. Neither did Nate Oates. I mean, I'm more for, and that doesn't mean Sean Miller won't. I'm more for getting 2-year build guys, and you got to have a couple of 1-year guys. Don't get me wrong, it's college basketball. I would love to have more 2-year build guys and build it. For you, year one, compete. If you get to the tournament, great. Obviously, you want to get to the tournament. I want more of a 2-year build with this. I want to see more guys for a first-year coach that kind of build it. Look, Nate Oates and Todd Golden probably wanted to go to the NCAA tournament year one, but that's not always the case. I mean, so there's different ways to go about it. I hope Sean Miller, you get in the tournament somehow, or you're knocking on the door in the tournament in year one. Maybe he puts it together and he goes on a magical run. Who knows? If you look over the course of time, though, I mean, that's different. Bruce Pearl didn't go to the tournament. Rick Barnes didn't go to the tournament their first years at Tennessee and Auburn in first couple of years. So it's going to take some time. But I hope there's a 2-year thought process. And we'll see. We'll see. I think Sean Miller's done this before. I think he's going to do really, really well.
All right, guys. Before we move on here, I'm going to tell everybody out there about Huel. The good Huel. Drinking strawberry banana this morning. Haven't had that one yet, but I am a very busy person, always on the go with 3 kids, which means a lot of the time I just can't find the time to sit and prepare a meal and then cook it. Every morning I'm scrambling, trying to get them ready, get them sent off to school, and then rushing to get ready for coffee and football, which doesn't really leave a lot of time for breakfast. But that's where Huel comes in. Their Black Edition ready to drink is a meal in a bottle. There's no prep, no hassle. I just grab it from the refrigerator and I'm all set. It's not just for breakfast, though. It gets me going anytime during the day when I just can't find the time to eat. Honestly, it's a lifesaver. I try to eat and drink well, and Huel checks all those boxes for me. It's high in protein. It contains all 27 essential vitamins and nutrients that support my immune system, and it's low in sugar with only 6 grams per bottle. It tastes good, and there's multiple flavors to choose from, including vanilla, chocolate, strawberry banana. Like I said, I'm having it this morning, and iced coffee. I know that you'll find you a flavor that you like as well, and Huel is going to hook OTF listeners up. New customers visit Huel.com/OnTexas today and use code OnTexas to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. That's Huel, HUEL.com/OnTexas using promo code OnTexas for 15% off and a free gift.
Hey, I didn't finish my basketball thought I wanted to finish because Bobby's mentioned something and I kind of went off a different direction. So Alabama, two teams in the Elite Eight from the SEC. You're guaranteed 3 because Tennessee and Kentucky play tonight. Probably going to be Tennessee in Houston in an Elite Eight game, which will be, I don't know. For those that have watched Rick Barnes and Kelvin Sampson in the Big 12 over the years, I mean, it's like just put the UFC cage around the court and see who comes out at the end. Then you have Ole Miss, obviously Michigan State, and you have Auburn, Michigan tonight too. Pretty good chance the SEC is going to have, I would say, 2 or 3 teams in the Final Four. 2 or 3 teams in the Final Four. It's look, the Condon injury for Florida, if he's really gimpy on a Saturday, that actually changes the tournament a little bit because that's the same ankle he had hurt previously this year. And if he's a little gimpy, that changes. The Florida runs a lot of stuff through him. That changes the Gators as good as they are a little bit when you start getting to this level. Duke, Alabama, that game's going to be won in the high 90s, maybe 100. You may have to hit 100 to win that game. I mean, that game's going to be wildly, wildly fast for college basketball, in my opinion. I don't think either team's backing down there. That's going to be a crazy game. Then Florida, Texas Tech. I mean, Florida obviously is the favorite there, but if he can't really go, that changes that team. That's going to be interesting. So I think we're looking at potentially 2 or 3 SEC teams in the Final Four.
Wow. Hey, Jerry, I watching those games last night. I kind of want to applaud you a little bit and pat you on the back. Talking about how offensive scoring has taken over college basketball, kind of like it has the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, 113 points.
BYU didn't play bad, and they got beat by 25.
Yeah. So just you've been talking about that being the wave of college basketball heading forward. But then you mentioned Tennessee versus Houston, and that's Rick Barnes versus Kelvin Sampson. And I'm thinking it might be 54-52.
Well, yeah, exactly. The crazy thing is early on in their careers at Texas and Oklahoma, those games were like, I think 50s, low 60s, right? Then Texas gets TJ Ford and Sampson has his Final Four team. So they end up in the high 60s, low 70s. These guys are going to be throwing haymakers, but they still may be like 74-72, right? Like, you're right, though. But that's a low-scoring game in this tournament right now. It's wild. This Duke Bama game, if both teams come close to replicate, and Bama's not going to hit 25 of 51 threes. I mean, geez, that they broke a record Loyola Marymount had held since the days where they were scoring 135 points. I mean, 21 threes in the NCAA tournament. It stood the test of time in a game since the 90s. That record may not be broken for a long time. 25 threes is ridiculous in a Sweet 16 game.
It's not just the 25 threes. It was 25 of 51 shooting.
Yeah, they only took 14 twos in the first 38 minutes of the game. 14 twos. I mean, but the game is that's why I like the Sean Miller hire at Texas, because of how he's evolved as a college coach. Just let him get his guys in here. He's proven he's going to get talent in here. I think he has the second or third most NBA players that he coached currently right now. He's going to get his players in here. I would just say, have a little patience, let the thing unfold. We're having a lot of fun. We have a great fun thread on Texas football about just Texas basketball, the roster, the portal. Come on over there. It's a lot of fun. Jordan 91, the guys are hilarious. But just let it happen. It doesn't happen in year one. To what you're seeing Nate Oates and what you're seeing Florida now, this was more than a 1-year build. This is 2-year and 3-year guys, 2-year players a lot of times there after you've built that first year. So, that's why I like the Sean Miller hire, because I think he's going to build a roster over time, and he has the offensive chops and he has the system to compete in the modern day of college basketball. He's evolved as a coach. He talked about in his press conference. Now it's all about putting that roster together and building this thing the right way. And I think he will.
Okay, I wanted to bring this comment up from Chris here. He said, Warren Roberson and Aaron Butler visited my son in Dale Children's Hospital, and they were so nice. Number one, Chris, hope that your son is doing well. And number two, that's awesome.
Yes, it is. And that, I'm kind of sad to see Horns with Heart and that element go away to some degree for Texas, the nonprofit kinship that they created, in my opinion. But I love it whenever Longhorns get out there and are part of the community. I think it's a big one. And definitely good luck to your son. Anybody that's had a son or daughter go through tough times, Blake went through something himself just about 3 or 4 months ago. We all are thinking about you and yours at this time. On a positive note, I do want to say this, because we like to say congratulations when people have babies and things like that. Longtime listener, Grant Sullivan, if you're out there, you and your wife, Kristen, you just got married last week. Congratulations, buddy. That's from one of your friends that asked us to say congratulations to you and yours on your wedding. Congrats, Grant Sullivan.
Yeah, very cool.
Grant, holy cow, I did that whole thing. Grady Sullivan. Not Grant Sullivan.
Congrats, Grady. Thanks for being a daily watcher of On Texas Football.
Just don't get your wife's name wrong, Grady. Make sure you call her Kristen.
Oh, all right. Our friend Jack, he says, yesterday I asked in a super chat about what position groups could compete with anyone in the nation by the first game. But I also asked what groups might develop into that by playoff time. And Jack was hoping that y'all could go in on that a little bit.
Mine's offensive line, 4 new starters. And I said this yesterday. I think maybe in this question, maybe in a different question. Texas in the same boat as your other 2 favorites, betting favorites to win a national championship, Ohio State and Georgia. All 3 are looking at the same thing right now. All 3 of their offensive line coaches, whether that's Kyle Flood, Stacy Searles, or whoever Ohio State's OL coaches, I can never remember the guy's name. I think it changed, is they all lost 4 or 5 starters last year. So for me, the question for all of them is almost the same. It's offensive line. But for Texas, for sure, offensive line, because they have a lot of talent, Bobby, but they also have guys. Look, I'll say this: where these programs want to get to for Texas is when I say inexperience, I'm talking about snaps in game inexperience. But Neto's not an inexperienced football player. You know, these guys aren't inexperienced. Cole Hudson, even though it's his first year playing center, is not an inexperienced football player. Even Connor Robertson's not inexperienced because they've been in a program 3 years. So there's experience and there's game experience. These guys have been in the system. They've been in Torrey Becton's offseason. They've been in Kyle Flood meeting room. They've been in the scheme for multiple years. But that's kind of – I'm looking at offensive line. Obviously, interior D-line, I think they're going to be really good against the run. How are they going to be as a disruptive unit? And then tight end. Those are the 3 positions for me that I'm really looking at. I think wide receiver, they're going to be A-okay. I mean, they got 2 starters back from a national semifinal game. DeAndre Moore's just out for the spring. But as far as the positions that are through game experience, it's going to be OL, tight end, and the young D lineman, so you can be the disruptor.
So if I understand it, what you're asking, Jack, is, you know, we all know that some positions are going to be getting into the groove as the season goes along, and who's going to be there at the end. And I've got to say, the ones that I looked at, just about every position at Texas is situated to compete with the nation's very best, in my opinion, by season's end. Jerry mentioned offensive line. By season's end, they should be able to compete with just about anybody if they stay healthy, okay? So the ones that I worry about or that I saw I don't think have the personnel yet to be in that category are wide receiver, okay? Now, if they add one in the portal, all bets are off. I agree with Jerry. Then you have Wingo, Moore, and a legit draft pick, and then possibly a Parker Livingstone backing up. So you got 4, right? So that my outlook there changes drastically. The other 2 positions are tight end, and again, that depends on who they get in the portal, right? Just same as wide receiver. So they get the right tight end in the portal, I think they could produce by the end of the year. The last piece for me is defensive tackle. And actually, I wrote down cornerback as a question mark right now because we don't know what Jalen Gilbo is going to look like out there, or if Kobe Black or Cade Phillips or Warren Roberson, somebody like that. So there are a number of different positions that I worry about. Defensive tackle, I worry about. Cornerback, tight end, wide receiver. I think they're going to be fine late in the year at running back because if you have Wisner and Baxter and possibly Christian Clark and whoever else comes about in that backfield, I think you're going to be fine. To Jerry's point, you're 3/4 of the way there already at wide receiver. And so those are the positions. I feel great about edge, linebacker, safety. I feel good about offensive line. I feel great about quarterback.
Rex St. Charles just brought up a great idea. Coffee and Football doing long distance dedications. No, but maybe CJ and I need to reenact the show Love Line.
Oh,
TV back in the days.
Man,
in the chat, if you want CJ and I to do Longhorn Love Line as a show weekly, let us know. That might be a lot of fun. I'm not sure Bobby would like that to tune in for that show, but I'll be Dr. Drew and CJ can be Adam Carolla. We'll do Longhorn Love Line.
I don't even know what that is. That's
Man.
Bobby, you never watch Love Line on MTV? I'm shocked.
He used to come on late nights on MTV.
No.
He says no. Well, let's move on to something Bobby definitely knows about, and we're gonna talk a couple of players that we're getting lots of questions on today. We're gonna start here with G-Town Eagle 76. He says Alex January is my breakout player for next season. Dude showed some serious flashes as a true freshman. A year under Becton is a scary thought. But then Christopher Weatherford says, are we expecting January to continue to grow to a true zero tech or stay at a 3.5?
I think he could play either. He's one of those guys that could do the 0 or the 3. I don't think he's going to be a 5. It's just not him. Not that he couldn't play there in a pinch, but he's going to get the vast majority of snaps between those two positions. I think later, the older he gets, the more he can play the 0 as he gets more strength and weight overall. So I think you're looking at that. But yes, I mean, we were talking about this on Tuesday after practice. He was running out there with the 1s on Tuesday. Alex January already doing that. Now, is that because Travis Shaw, Cole Brevard, and Hero Canoe are all new? I'm not sure. But I think that they are relying on Alex January to be a player for them this year. No doubt.
And we have a couple of questions about Santana Wilson. Dave actually, for example, says, Bobby, any update on Santana Wilson breaking into the defensive backfield? And then Ike also asked, could Santana Wilson get a shot if Gilbo doesn't work out?
Jerry, you were watching this. I thought that he was backing up Manny Muhammad on the other side.
He was. Him and Warren Roberson, I think, were kind of taking reps over there. I think the behind Gilbo was
Kobe
Black, Cade Phillips, and then Cade Phillips took a couple of reps on both sides, and then Caleb Chester. So that's who that was. On the opposite side, it was Manny Muhammad, Santana Wilson, Warren Roberson. I think they both got some 2 reps. Again, it's a brief media window, and then Cade Phillips went back and forth a little bit during that media window for us as well.
Grayson Littleton, by the way, we didn't mention him. Jerry mentioned we've heard some positive things on him. He's running at nickel right now behind Wardell Mack.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Huey says Gilbo is a player, but is he fast enough to play corner?
From your mouth to God's ears. I think that's the reality of it. We don't know, Brandon. Texas is probably trying to find that out right now. Actually, the coaches probably already know whether or not they really think he's fast enough. But I think they want to get a real look at him at corner. One of the things that Dwayne Aquina does, and I know Steve Sarkisian ascribes to it, Pete Kwiatkowski does, Johnny Nansen, all those guys, Terry Joseph did, as well as Blake Gideon. They want the best 5 on the field. Like there's 2 corner spots, a nickel, and 2 safeties. They don't really – how that is constructed is kind of nuance, and they just want the best 5 on the field. So if that means they need to move Jalen Gilbo out the corner because he can play that, and then that'll allow them, whether it's Wardell Mack or Jelani McDonald pushes down to nickel when Derek Williams returns, or Xavier Filsaime or somebody like that comes on, they want the best 5 on the field, and that's what they're doing this for. I couldn't express that more. So if Gilbo at corner, even if he lacks a little speed, makes them have a better 5 overall, they'll go with that. Because the one thing about it right now is, if you think about it, Manny Muhammad, Jelani McDonald, Michael Taft, and Jalen Gilbo. They have 4 guys that have starter snaps returning. Right? Is that fair, Jerry? 3 of those are, along with Derek Williams, 3 of those are safeties in McDonald, Taft, and Williams. Okay? One of them's a nickel. And so McDonald can play nickel, So they need to figure out how to get some versatility there to move people around. And I will say this, cross-training right now, in case of injury in season, maybe Jalen Gilbo goes back to nickel, but, one of the Manny Muhammad goes down 3 games into the year. All of a sudden, Texas needs a corner, and Jalen Gilbo is your best guy left. He's more ready to play than a Santana Wilson, who's only a year in or something. And they have to go in that direction. I mean, cross-training can be good. It doesn't mean that he's necessarily staying, Brandon. We'll see. We'll see. I understand your concern, though.
And we're going to talk a lot more about defensive backs here in just a moment because we're getting a lot of defensive back questions, guys. But first, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell folks out there about one of our sponsors in Factor.
You know who needs Factor meals more in their life? Me and a food baby, if that's possible. Don't forget to throw in a personal experience with this, and that is my personal experience with this. I need more Factor meals. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has you covered. Their chef-made gourmet meals make eating, well, pretty easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Speaking of keto, you can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. This is based on randomized controlled clinical trial. With Factor Keto, results will vary, obviously, depending on diet and exercise. Yes, I need both of those. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Factor can help you feel your best all day with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. You know who looks great these days because of Factor? Blake Monroe, the host. Get your Factor meals. Get your started at factormeals.com/Texas50 off, all undercase, and use that code Texas50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Texas50 off at factormeals.com.
And Jerry's got you covered on the food section, but obviously you're going to need something to drink with that Factor as well, and that's where Cure comes in. Cure is a plant-based hydrating electrolyte drink mix with no added sugar. It's a natural, delicious, and convenient way to keep you and your whole family hydrated, but without the artificial stuff. And I've said it many times on here, I'm very selective about what I eat and drink, so Cure is right up my alley. It's made with clean ingredients, which means you stay healthy and stay energized, but without the crash. And hydration is key to feeling your best, and Cure makes it easier than ever. I drink it every day to start my day. A lot of times right here on Coffee and Football. It tastes great. They offer 7 amazing flavors that you're going to love. It's also convenient. You take it with you anywhere, as each bag they send you contains 14 on-the-go packets. You just dump them in a bottle of water, shake it up, and you're ready to go. Hydration goes beyond just drinking water. It's about replenishing the electrolytes we lose through sweat, sleep, alcohol, and daily activities. Water alone isn't enough to do the job, and that's why you need to try Cure. It's the electrolyte drink mix that tastes as amazing as it makes you feel. And for OTF listeners, Cure is offering 20% off your first order. Stay hydrated, feel your best by visiting curehydration.com/OnTexas. Use promo code OnTexas at checkout. That's curehydration.com/OnTexas. Use promo code OnTexas for 20% off your first order. Okay, well, as I said, we do have a lot of defensive back questions. But first, real quick, guys, it is a very busy weekend on the 40 acres and just with all the teams in general. Jerry, I'm going to let you start.
Well, Texas women's basketball, obviously, I actually saw the buses pulling out yesterday, flew to Birmingham yesterday. Huge game coming up Saturday at 2:30 against Tennessee, the 5 seed. Obviously the Texas relays are going on. Jalen Lott's competing today, weather permitting. Let me look out the window. Not looking great right now. We'll see how much they get in later today. NCAA swimming and diving championships, obviously. Beach volleyball has a awesome tournament in Baton Rouge. We're going to talk about Texas women's basketball soon. Texas beach volleyball plays 3 top 5 teams. Softball is at 18 Mississippi State. Women's tennis in Knoxville. Baseball at Missouri, men's tennis, Kentucky. I mean, you look at it, it's a huge weekend on the 40 beach volleyball. There you go, playing number 1 UCLA as well, where Stein Metzger came from, who'd won 2 national titles at UCLA before starting the Texas beach volleyball program. He'll eventually win one at Texas. I'll throw you that prediction out there. But Texas women in the Sweet 16 against Tennessee. And I think this weekend is going to be so interesting because what we've talked about all year with this team is, and yes, Sarah Ryan Conwell has entered the portal. What we've talked about all year with Texas women's basketball is when they get deep into the tournament, it's going to be so matchup driven. Now with Tennessee makes on average 10 threes a game. And Texas beat Tennessee 80-76 in Austin during SEC play. We're getting to the games where Maddie Booker and Taylor Jones had big games against Tennessee last time. I'm interested to see how Tennessee defends Texas in this game. Do they just pack in a zone and say, all right, shoot it, see what you can do, or not? Because Texas crushed Tennessee in the interior in that game. In that game in Austin, Tennessee was 9 of 17 from 3, and Texas was 1 of 6 or 7, I believe. I have to go back and look at the box score. But now we're getting to these games where you have back-to-back games to get to the Final Four, where you're playing teams that shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. So the question is, I really think Shea Holley and Jordan Lee are going to be really key this weekend for Texas. They have to get enough on the perimeter in these games. If you look up at the box score, back-to-back games, and the team Texas is playing has 9 threes, and Texas has 1 or 2. I mean, you're starting minus 17 to 20 in these games. That's a lot of points to make up in neutral courts with very thin margin. So I think Shea Holley, Jordan Lee need to shoot the ball well. Shea Holley's really good player. Hasn't shot it as well as past years, but she's had a couple 3 games. This is where Texas, these next 2 games to advance to a Final Four, they're going to need the perimeter players to help Maddie Booker and Jones and Oldacre. They're going to need some help because these teams are going to come out firing, and these opponents know if they can put 8, 9, 10 threes on the board in this Sweet 16 game or an Elite 8 game, which will be TCU or Notre Dame, 2 of the better shooting teams in the country. So they know if they can put 8, 9, 10 threes on the board against Texas on a neutral court, that puts a lot of pressure on the Texas offense to keep pace because it just comes down to a numbers game. It's analytics driven. And so I think watch for Jordan Lee, Shea Holley. They need to have good weekends for Texas offensively.
All right, well, you're watching Coffee and Football presented by BKCW, and we got some super chats we need to get into. We got more defensive back talk that we need to get into as well. And Jack, thank you for your super chat. Says OTF gets it. I love your positive thoughts on our defensive back room. Thank you, Jack, for that. And
need to see him gel still, Jack. That's what we need to see this spring and fall. Make him a unit.
And Blake Jester wants to know, could Littleton do some returning? A lot of his film were electric returns. Sorry if y'all have already mentioned it. Hook 'em, and thank you guys.
Jerry, what do you think? Can he?
Yes, seeing him in person, yes. He's got that explosivity to him, that instant 0 to 60 in him. I think that's why he's also impressing a lot at nickel, is in turn and run situations. That dude can close. And he can run with fast receivers even when he's initially beaten. I think he can factor in, whether that's kickoff or punt return. Now, the first 15-minute, 20-minute media window we had Monday, Bobby. Tuesday, was it? Yes. Ryan Wingo was number 1 with punt return, which I'm on record. I didn't really love to see that. That's a lot of long legs to get hit. That was not kind of what I was looking for. But could Grayson Littleton – I think this is the class. Normally, it's your offensive guys. There's Littleton there. I mean, he's got some juice now. He's going to look really fast on this field, by the way. But I think Grayson Littleton and Jonah Williams can both factor in as DBs in the return game at Texas during their time. Now, Littleton may be on kickoff returns, and Jonah may be on punt returns, but I think they both have that fearless quality and can factor in.
Well, I mean, look, he handled a couple punts there. That one I didn't like that he bobbled, but the kick return he had, that ball was going up and away from him.
Oh, yeah.
He caught with his hands. So he clearly has good hands. This is Grayson Littleton that we're watching. Ryan Niblett tried to return some punts. He dropped one. Aaron Butler misplayed 3 consecutive punts right in front of us. I don't think that's going to be his deal. I think punt returns open, Jerry. I think we'll see who it is. It could end up being DeAndre Moore, by the way, because he was second team last year after Silas Bolden. He was going to get that call short of Matthew Golden, perhaps going back there in a key situation or something. So barring one of the young guys taking it, I think it might be DeAndre Moore's job. But right now, it's questionable for sure.
Our next super chat comes from Antonio Harris. Thank you, Antonio. He says, with all this talent going against each other daily, iron sharpens iron. This team will be special as no team can match Texas talent.
Ooh, I don't know about no team, but there are a few teams. Look, I mean, there are other teams getting after it right now. That's one thing you can rest assured about the conference Texas is in. There's going to be no lack of talent in the SEC. I think we'll see how it goes. The teams that can match Texas's talent, it's going to be about execution, how your quarterback plays, how your defense defends. It's just going to be very small very small margin between victory and defeat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, Leo in the chat said Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State. I believe that can match close to the talent. Blake, I think you have something to bring up that shows just how much team speed Georgia actually has. Look, Georgia's got some impressive.
I sent this morning to the group chat.
Georgia's got some impressive team speed, man. I mean, these guys are routinely hitting 100 miles an hour. That's a fast football team. I got it to one of the fastest I've ever seen.
Well, like 3/4 of those are all speeding, right? Related.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fast team, man. These guys, they aren't playing around now. We're talking 90s, 100s. These guys are fast.
25 arrests versus 24 wins since January 2023.
Man.
Well, 2 of those are against Texas, which is unfortunate. 2 of those wins.
Yep. Okay, our next question here comes from Dave. Dave says, Muhammad was the weak link that opposing teams targeted last year, particularly in the playoffs. What will be different this year? Can Akina make that big of a difference?
Well, it's not just Akina, it's Manny Muhammad getting better. And Mark Orfe is the corners coach. So Dwayne Akina is the safeties coach. So I will say this, Dave, and to everybody out there doubting Manny Muhammad was put in a lot of one-on-one situations last year. And in my opinion, he got beat against Clemson and he got beat against Ohio State. Well, Clemson has some really good receivers. Ohio State has as good of receivers as you're going to find. So it wasn't like he was getting beat regularly in season. So those are tough matchups for any corner. I do expect Manny Muhammad to have a better year this year. I expect him maybe not to be thrown out as much and the other corner to be tested a little bit more, perhaps. That's something to watch. But overall, I know people are concerned about Manny Muhammad, but my point is, I don't think Manny Muhammad's a top 2 or 3 corner in the country, potentially. I just don't. I see him more as a top 10 corner in the country, and top 10 corners in the country are going to get beat every so often. Every corner gets beat every so often.
Yeah.
I mean, my point being, I don't see him as, he's going to be cornerback 1 off the board next year. I don't think anybody's predicting that for him. So he's going to get beat. Everybody does.
Yeah, if you play elite talent, you're not going to win 100% of the time. And
no chance.
Look, I think he's a top 3 round draft pick at the end of the day. I think he's a really good football player. And so I think he had a good year. I think a lot of the times, confidence, there's a fine line with confidence too. It's if you get beat a couple of times and it kind of hits you in the face, and then, and I'm just saying it's a fine line with confidence sometimes. And then, getting beat twice can lead to getting beat 4 times. Especially when it hits you in the face kind of unexpectedly, and then you got to recover quickly. I think Manny Muhammad's a really good player. I expect him to have a really good season for Texas. And people are mentioning this that are just coming in. Yeah, Ryan Conwell, the stud guard at Xavier, is in the portal. Lefty, would be one of the best returning guards in college basketball next season, in my opinion. He averaged 16.7, 16.5 at Xavier for Sean Miller this year. Made 99 threes at 41%. That's extremely, extremely good in college basketball. And he's done that 2 straight years at Indiana State, then Xavier. So we'll see where it goes. But Ryan Conwell in the portal. He could also test the NBA. Some of these guys could test the NBA draft waters, go through the process, return to college. But Ryan Conwell's a stud, and he's got a frame on him. He's a strong guy. Look, if you're a Texas fan, you just hope that this one ends up with him in Austin. And I'm not saying it is, but if it does, because it's unpredictable, because somebody may value him at $3 million a year, you just don't know, right? And then all bets are off. But if he ends up in Austin, Texas basketball got better. I'll say that. And Dalen Swain, the other kid from Xavier that I think is really good players, also in the portal. We'll see where that goes as well. A lot of this stuff just comes down to one thing, does Sean Miller think he has to have the guys? 1. 2, then what is your competition and how much is that competition? Look, there's one guard. I'll throw 2 at you. There's one guard that just committed in the last couple of days that was over 7 figures from what I was told by a college coach who would know. Over 7 figures. And so over 1. I don't know if it was 1.3, 1.2, 1.5. I don't know the exact figure. I just know it was over 1. Then there was a point guard that went from mid-major to high major basketball that was at 5 to 600. And that guy is a good player, not great. So where do you value these guys versus building out all your roster with other guys? It's college basketball is in an interesting place right now. Very interesting. So, but look, Ryan Conwell and Dalen Swain, if Sean Miller said, hey, we got to have these guys, if he actually pulled it off and got both those guys, Texas basketball just got better. Those guys are really good.
Texas is also trying to keep Kendall Weaver.
Yes.
And Tremont Mark, Jerry, possibly Jordan Pope, depending on if everything works out there. But Texas definitely trying to keep at this point Kendall Weaver and Tremont Mark.
All right, guys, we got time for a few more questions. But before we get to those, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about escaping the insurance trap.
Yeah, absolutely. Today's show being brought to you by our friends over at bkcw.com. They take you out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting for your business, not just price quoting. Operating out of its headquarters in Austin and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risks and employee benefits. BKCW has risk consultants that specialize in several industries, from construction and transportation companies to nonprofits, school districts, restaurant groups, etc. You'll get matched up with someone who knows your risk and can help you escape the insurance trap. Get started with a free risk assessment, bkcw.com, or send an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started and get the support you deserve. That's bkcw.com. Thank you for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
Hey, I want to address a question real quick, follow up on basketball. Somebody asked us earlier in the chat, and I want to address this because it's very interesting in talking to some college coaches in the last week. Question from Z Holly. Question about BB schools, basketball schools. Does a school like Nova dedicate more NIL as a percentage because it's the primary sport? Texas has to spread the wealth. It's actually a really good topic. Look, you know who's hated the SEC kind of dominating college basketball this year? ACC and Big East.
Big East for sure.
Big East for sure. And ACC as well. Look, the ACC has been on top of college basketball for a long time. And, I mean, that's the SEC coming in and having the best basketball league by a country mile is not going over well. And so to that point, Bobby, That's what's going to be interesting to me. I do think you're going to see the ACC on some level, which may be bad news for their football. And then the Big East for sure is going to try to allocate as much as they can out of their house settlement agreement, their annual, to basketball. I mean,
well, half of them don't play football.
Right. Nova doesn't play football.
Doesn't play football.
I mean, and what's his name? Jim Moore is the football coach at UConn. Well, he's SOL. I mean, there's more money going to go to basketball in men's and women's. Okay. That's just going to happen. The question is, then it becomes what we were talking about earlier. Outside of that, that 20 million or whatever you get, how much, without 501c3, obviously, how much NIL opportunity, how many NIL opportunities can you provide for your players in football too, outside of the number? In basketball, Bobby, that's where the big cities are going to have an advantage. I really believe that long term.
Well, think about it this way: what they're bemoaning now, and the SEC coaches are part of this, is that Rick Pitino at St. John's doesn't have a football team. They're going to be able to spend whatever the house settlement says they can spend, and they can spend the vast majority of it, or not even opt in and spend up to that amount.
Yep.
And it'll all go towards basketball. SEC schools in basketball will likely be at a competitive disadvantage in NIL dollars coming from their school versus the Big East. That's just a point blank done. Kansas even was talking about it in an article with Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger yesterday. Kansas has to protect its football footprint because, frankly, football makes more money for them than basketball because of the TV contracts. So even though you have this historic basketball program in Kansas, and they are going to spend more money on their basketball team than you would think, than the normal Big 12 team will, they're allotting more funds in that direction. So we'll see where it all goes, Jerry. But I'm a firm believer that this house settlement will likely fall on its face. Everything about it reeks of desperation to me. You can't. How are you going to tell a player that he has to take a pay cut for doing the exact same thing? Because that's what's coming.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck. Work. I mean, I've been a business owner. Good luck telling your guys are going to take a pay cut and getting them to still want to do their job. So I think the house settlement has some provisions in it that'll make it interesting, but I get the sense that it may end up being for naught, I guess.
What Bobby? What are the chances that the conferences say, "Screw it, we're going to go do our own thing"?
They're already trying to do that in some ways, Jerry. This governance that they're talking about now already is.
Will this push it? Will this push it down the road more?
I don't. What's going to happen is they're not going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle, and they're going to have to accept that these players eventually are employees. Is what's going to happen. If they want any sort of control over how much a person can make, you need to make them either an employee or you need to have collective bargaining. Okay. They've offered neither at this point. The athletes do not have a seat at the table. So until they do, all this is going to be lawyered up, and really the only people I guess some student athletes will make some money, and but the lawyers are going to be the ones still making the money until the NCAA and its membership gives in and makes these people employees, because that theoretically that's what they are. Stop. I think stop the madness. Yes, you can give someone a scholarship and still make them an employee. Doesn't mean you have to do one or the other.
That's where it's ultimately
headed. That's where the NCAA schools get it wrong. Oh, well, we're giving them a scholarship, so they can't be employees. It's not true.
No,
it's not true.
It's ultimately headed to these guys being employees. That's where all this is headed.
I don't know what it should or shouldn't be. I'm not telling you what maybe it's collective bargaining instead of employee relationship. I'm fine with either, but until the athletes have a seat at the table, I mean, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to take less money than they're making today. I don't think that's going to happen.
All right, we got a super chat to close out the show, fellas. This one from Freelance Society. Thank you so much for your super chat. What do you think about GMs in college football? Seems like they have more power than the head coach for some programs like OU and Stanford.
Stanford just fired their coach, the GM. Andrew Luck. I don't know if you saw that or not, but their coach, Troy Taylor, had some, impermissible conduct, I guess would be the best way to put it. And Andrew Luck fired him earlier this week as the GM of Stanford football. I don't know that Jim Nagy has the power universally to fire Brent Venables. So I do think that there are some places that will have that element, but I think it'll be few and far between. I think that it's far more likely that the GM works for the head football coach and reports to the head football coach, like is what happens at Texas. I don't agree with people like OU that are trying to make parallel tracks for football. I just don't think it works. We'll see. I don't think you need two head coaches for a sport in college sports. I think that's what a general manager for some people is doing, and I don't like that. I don't think that's right. So,
where I think there's a big difference in GMs, college to pro is, and this is why some guys will stay in college even though they're talked about possibility going pro, is Sark he has a GM in Brandon Harris, right? And they have the support group under that GM.
Yep.
Sark makes all the final calls on everything. Their GM in college football is not telling the head coach what to do. Even after Andrew Luck makes his hire, he's not going to take away that from his head coach. That's the big difference. In pro sports, the owners and the GMs can make a lot. They can make your life hell because the player you want, they may not, right? I mean, there's just the salary cap and everything that goes into it. But in college sports, the head coaches are making the calls, Bobby.
The head coach has, best way to put it, head coach has veto power.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean that Brandon Harris isn't out there evaluating players, trying to recruit players or whatever. We're not. Texas has a GM that is really, really doing a great job right now. Okay. What Jerry's talking about is where I think is when you overstep, when the GM has veto power on the coach.
Yes.
That's dysfunctional. I think that you have the ex-president of AT&T or ex-CEO of AT&T hiring Jim Nagy at OU to be the general manager of OU football. Okay. Jim Nagy would have been Jim Nagy if he were. I'm gonna try to be nice, talented, good guy, probably all that stuff. We've had him on the show before. If he were that good, he wouldn't have been the Senior Bowl CEO. He would have been an assistant general manager somewhere, because that would have paid more than the Senior Bowl. Just putting that out there. So I don't think that's like big feather in the cap for OU. And I will say this, in my opinion, I'd rather a GM in the college game be someone that can help me get recruits and go help recruit. And I'm not saying Jim Nagy can't or won't do that. I just say that Brandon Harris has proven that he can.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. We want to thank them, along with Huel, Factor, and Cure Hydration, all for sponsoring today's show. And, of course, thank you all for tuning in and for the super chats, the great questions. Just remember, we can't always get to all of them, and we can't be online all the time, or on YouTube, I guess I should say. So be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com to further the discussion. If you're not a member, become one very easily. Use promo code OTFOG when you sign up. It'll save you a little bit of money, and you can lock in an annual subscription for just $49.95. Again, that's promo code OTFOG at ontexasfootball.com. But, Bobby, what do you have later today for everybody?
Got the 1 o'clock live stream, talk a little football action. Longhorns got one more practice this week over the weekend. Also talking some recruiting. Jerry is in Austin right now. There's some recruits on campus. We didn't even get to Xavier Crowell today, guys. The running back from Alabama is in town. Jerry's going to also be over at the Texas Relays, where there's some high school kids competing, hopefully. But we're worried about the weather a little bit. Then also this afternoon, you and Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel, Blake, are back with Bases Loaded, our weekly baseball content. Texas on the road in Columbia, Missouri this week. Missouri, not that great a team. Texas 5-1 in conference play. I don't want to, you never say sweep because you don't want to get ahead of yourself. Take it one game at a time. But man, if Texas can get through this weekend with a good series in Columbia, Missouri, it's setting up pretty nice for them in conference play right now for Texas.
Oh, without a doubt.
I just gotta say, the Love Line on Texas Football Love Line, sponsored by Joy Mode and Manscaped. We got real possibilities with this show, I gotta tell you.
Bobby talked about veto power earlier. He may be vetoing your idea here shortly after this.
I'm looking for a coffee sponsor at some point. I'm more in that rather than
we can do that too.
Putting Joy Mode in the coffee. So.
And David Williams, though, the baseball show is not a live stream. Maybe one day, but it's kind of hard when it airs. That's about the same time Colt starts his Friday high school matchup. So, but maybe we can do that one day. Not saying for sure. Anyway, we will be back on Monday morning. I hope you all have a great weekend out there. And for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll